Hey everybody, welcome to the QuiverCast.
You go left, I go right. Man, this wave is out of sight. Going surfing, going surfing, going surfing with friends.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the QuiverCast. Today we are super excited. We're having Mark Hanley on. He is the dude that represents Fallen Waterman's Foundation. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I'm honored to be on here.
Oh, no, I'm stoked you're on here. So right off the bat, tell us about Fallen Waterman's Foundation.
Yeah, so I always kind of like to start off with the story of how I was kind of motivated to start it, Mike. And the story really goes back 15 years ago, it was about 2010. A buddy of mine who was a retired fireman told me a story about an attempted rescue that he made a place north of the Bay Area. There was a guy that was actually one of the legends of San Francisco, one of the best surfers of Ocean Beach through the 70s and 80s. He was out surfing with his daughter. His wife and his other daughter were in on the beach. These guys had a great session, and strangely enough, he ended up basically dying of either a heart attack or accidental drowning. But before then, my buddy, the fireman, ended up doing CPR on him on the beach.
Wow.
They ended up heli-vacuuming him out of there. And my buddy drove the wife and the two daughters an hour to Petaluma to find out their dad didn't make it. When he told me this story, all I could think about was my two kids and these two daughters of this guy's, just thinking how their lives changed in an instant. I worked for Vans for 15 years, and our VP of marketing was the president of SEMA, and I asked him if there is any organization that helps the children of fallen watermen and women, and he said there's nothing like that. So at that point, I hit up one of my buddies that was an attorney from Melvin and Myers in LA, and he got the 501c3 status for me through their community services group. They paid for the application, did all the legwork on it, which was huge. And since then, we've been giving out scholarships to the children of fallen watermen. And the point of it, too, is they don't have to have died in the water. We've had other people that have ended up getting brain cancer and basically just dying before they should, is the bottom line.
Yeah.
And it really started out as a vehicle for scholarships. And then what we found was that counseling really is a big part of trying to get some of these kids and some of these families ready to even go to college or just to take that next step after their grieving process. So we evolved into doing counseling as well. I have a number of friends that were counselors, therapists, and we've used them to help us help some of these families, whether it's the wife, because in my case, I always say fallen watermen and women, but it's been all the men that have died in one way or another at this point. But then what's evolved from that is during the pandemic, we had a couple guys take their lives at a local spot here in San Francisco. So we kind of started trying to pursue proactive counseling as well, because as you know, as we're sitting in the parking lots with our buddies, we'll talk about our bad shoulder, our bad back, or whatever, but rarely do we ever talk about what's going on upstairs. So the point of this is really to get those guys in the parking lot to notice when one of your local friends isn't showing up and giving him a call, finding out why he's not showing up. Just having people know that there is an organization out there that can help some of us get through some of these tougher times. And the last evolution that's taken place more recently in the last year or two is we've had a kid down in San Diego that ended up being a quadriplegic after he dove in to cool off at Mission Bay. He put out a GoFundMe, and we ended up supporting his GoFundMe to help him with his physical therapy bills and his medical bills. And the amazing story with him is he is now getting his MBA.
That's rad.
So it has not slowed him down, let's put it that way. That's kind of it in a nutshell. Counseling and scholarships is what it's all about.
When did this start?
2010 is when I started it. And by the time I got the 501c3 status and everything, it was probably 2011 by then.
How has the word gotten out? How have people found out about the Fallen Watermen's Foundation?
Actually, one of my grant recipients became my social media director, which was great.
Nice.
She's obviously so much more adept at that than I am. But we do post occasionally on Instagram, Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn as well with Fallen Waterman's Foundation. So those are kind of the social media side of it. But then we'll also do some of the local events that'll take place. So I'm based in the Bay Area, so Ocean Beach is pretty much my spot. So they'll have different events at Ocean Beach, whether it's to support one cause or another. And a bunch of us, the Stoke Fest, we all set up our pop-up tents and we'll be there, and people just come by the booth and find out about us that way. We've done some corporate beach cleanups too, which have actually been pretty profitable. I wasn't expecting it, but at the end of the beach cleanup, because a lot of corporations now, as you might know, they have like a give back day where they go out and they volunteer their time to do one thing or another. And then at the end of the day, the regional manager came up and said, "Hey, we're going to give you a check."
Wow, nice.
So that's been nice too. And then word of mouth is the other piece that obviously is probably the main way to get the word out. And then I also set up an ambassador program where, as you know, we've talked about the fact there's a different crew on the north side of the pier at Huntington Beach than there is at 56th Street in Newport Beach. And you show up one place or the other and you look kind of like an alien if that's not your spot. As I've gotten to know people at different peaks and different breaks up and down the coast, I'll find one guy in particular that obviously is well connected. And then typically what he'll do is he'll introduce me to some of the other guys in that parking lot that can move the dial, is the bottom line. And then I'll end up talking with them more than my ambassadors. All have like the 4x6 card that they can just hand to somebody, because all of them have the stickers on their trucks and that type of thing. But it's just an easy way to get the word out. And then I kind of take over from there, working with some of these people that might know of family foundations. And that's really one of the main vehicles that we're really pursuing, because I've been in sales my whole life. I love selling products. I don't necessarily like having to ask my friends for money. With the family foundations, they have to give away a certain percentage of their capital every year in order to keep that status. So it's an easier ask. It's been nice to work with some of these family foundations that will just continue to give us some donation year in and year out.
Yeah, you guys are doing a lot. Well, since we're talking about the donations and stuff, there is a page where individuals donate to you guys and help out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. But you're also looking for bigger help, corporations.
Yeah, and the thing I looked at too at the very beginning was just looking at all the corporations that benefit from our passion for the water.
There you go.
And quite frankly, it goes to restaurants too. You think about Duke's in Huntington Beach, and how you walk in and there's the big picture of Duke Kahanamoku right there, who's like, I would say, the ultimate waterman. I was even talking with somebody at one point about making a Fallen Waterman's Foundation beer.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. And they told me, Mark, you've got some work to do before you try to do something like that. So I took a step back from that. But especially with the corporations, a lot of corporations these days do collaborations because they realize they do have to give something back to the community. And that's where I think, quite frankly, for the Fallen Waterman's Foundation, like the surf apparel companies are probably a better fit. Even like a Vans would be a great fit. Versus, Channel Islands, Firewire. I've kind of thought about going after some of the surfboard companies. I did have one ambassador in Southern California that had his own label called Bald Johnny's Longboards. I don't know if you've ever seen any of John Berger's boards. They're beautiful. It's just a little local shaper. But he would take the logo, the Fallen Waterman's Foundation logo, and glass it into every board. And then give $50 back to the Fallen Waterman's. There's kind of an implied sense of danger if you were to put that on your board if you're at Channel Islands. It's like, yeah, buy a surfboard, and by the way, here's the website for Fallen Waterman's Foundation.
Right.
That probably is not the best. So that's kind of where I go back to the different companies. I always kind of have my North Star brands that I think would be a great fit. Outer Known, obviously, I love what they're doing with their sustainability side of things too, and of course Outer Known also, that Firewire is also part of Outer Known. So that would be like the big hit there, let's say. And then the other thing that I've really tried to focus on is music as well, and just Jack Johnson, for instance, he's a perfect example of somebody that obviously he's been an amazing surfer. He's tied into the North Shore. What I've read, he's given $30 million away to different environmental causes over the last 20 or 30 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so the Jack Johnson Foundation, I'm kind of trying to figure out how to maybe contact him on that front, just more in regards to, helping out on the humanitarian side along with his environmental passions.
Yeah, this is a new organization that, it's not new. It's been around for a while, but I haven't heard of it until recently.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to know and to think that, maybe your buddy does need someone to talk to, or, a friend in the parking lot, like you said, or in the lineup. How many people have you helped?
Yeah, I would say overall, there's probably been about 20 different families that we've helped so far.
Nice.
So up to this point, we've given out $212,000 in scholarships.
Nice.
So my ultimate goal is to hit $1 million. I kind of look at the sidewalks outside Jack's at the Huntington Beach Pier. And
yes.
there's some people in that sidewalk that are in there because they're surf philanthropists. So I think maybe that's my ultimate goal, Mike, is to end up on the sidewalk at Huntington Beach Main Street.
In the Walk of Fame.
Yeah, the Walk of Fame.
That'd be awesome. What have you heard from people that have actually gotten like maybe some mental health therapy and they've recovered? Have they come back with stories of how it's changed their lives or anything?
Yeah, it's been really fun on that side just to hear some of their stories. There's, for instance, one guy we ended up helping that got Meniere's disease. He'd been an engineer for NASA. Super impressive gentleman. He ended up getting Meniere's disease, had to go on disability, and his 20-year-old daughter ended up having to take care of him.
Wow.
And she basically just got overwhelmed because he couldn't drive. He had to get driven to all his medical appointments, etc. And she just got overwhelmed and dropped out of college. We linked her up with one of our therapists. We actually worked with her for a little longer than we anticipated, but she ended up getting back into school and graduating from her 4-year program.
Heck yeah, that's great.
It's just amazing. And just to read some of the thank you notes that we get, and it's really the only thing I ask in return from any of these grant recipients is that they send us back, and this is old school, but a handwritten thank you note, and we make it out to our largest donor and the FWF, and then it's just a handwritten thank you note that then I gather at the end of the year and put them all in a notebook, and then I pass them off to our biggest donor. So
That's
she
cool.
has a record of what's going on this front. In every case, every thank you note talks about how much we not only have helped that particular grant recipient with their college education type thing, but how much we've helped the family and financially just to be able to take some of that pressure off. And I'll just generalize and say the mom, because at this point it has been the mom that ends up having to work through and navigate all these different challenges.
What about donating time? Is there opportunities out there to, if someone doesn't maybe have the income to financially help you guys, is there things that we can do to help you in other ways?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that takes me back to that ambassadors program, Mike. It's the perfect way because, there's a few of us here in Northern California, but, you mentioned to me that 36% of your viewership is coming from Australia.
Yes.
And that's obviously the next place for us to go. We have good presence on the North Shore, up and down the coast of California, and we've kind of held off pursuing Australia until we have things a little bit more dialed. But especially with events, there's events that go on up and down the coast. And I obviously can't be at every event, and it doesn't necessarily make sense for us from Northern California to drive to Southern California for an event.
Right.
But we've got the pop-up tents. We've got the tables. It's such an easy setup. And typically what I'll do is I'll work at somebody else's event. Like I'll be one of the partners for it, but I'm not the one that ends up having to get the permit for the event and to do a lot of that legwork.
Oh, yes.
That's above and beyond the call. That's a lot of effort to get all that done.
It is.
And I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, and that's not necessarily one of my strengths. It's like I've talked many times about trying to find an event coordinator that would want to take that role on just to be able to coordinate events. It would be massive. And then just trying to figure out the right demographic that you want to hit. And in some cases, like we've done some things we've combined with the City Surf Project, which I don't know if you're familiar with them in San Francisco.
No.
But it's a group that they basically have high school teachers that start surf clubs in some of the lower income high schools in San Francisco.
Oh, that's rad.
And then they take them out and teach them how to surf, and they have to earn their patches from different projects that they have to do. There was a movie premiere at the Balboa Theater in San Francisco, And we got to set up in the lobby with a couple other vendors just to get people coming through. But you'd imagine with a lot of surf movies, it was a pretty young demographic. It also exposes us to that younger demographic that might have parents that know their kids surf. They've seen what surfing has done for their kids, you know, in so many ways. So then next thing you know, we end up getting a donation from some parent that wasn't even at the Balboa Theater. But it's the other piece that I think is just tying back into the theaters and different surf movies, I think is the other avenue. Even if it were to just put up my 15-second video that we have as kind of an introductory thing before the movie starts, you know, something like that. So Taylor Steele's been on my list for a long time too.
There's a lot of movie makers out there right now.
Yeah, that's for sure.
The young guys coming up. Yeah, this is a rad organization. You're helping out our people, basically, which is fulfilling in a lot of ways, I'm sure. Other things like linking up with like a surf contest, maybe. Like, have you had the opportunity maybe to one day, like maybe pitch a little tent next to the WSL event or the US Open or something like that?
Yeah, I think especially the big ones like that.
Yeah.
We've looked at more of the smaller kind of local events, even in Santa Cruz,
which is beautiful.
Wonderful. Well, they'll have tents pitched there as well. So I have not done that yet with the WSL. That's the ultimate goal. Once again, kind of a North Star type thing.
There you go.
I literally just had some banners made. Like I've got my pop-up tents and all that, but I recently just had some banners made. And there's a band in Santa Cruz called Sons of Surf, and it's SUNS of Surf. Mm-hmm. And the keyboard player took my 3-foot by 3-foot banner and hung it on his keyboard, on the front of his keyboard. And by the end of the night, he came back with probably 5 different people for me to call.
Oh, that's cool.
And also tied back to some of the surf clubs that will have their monthly meetings or whatever. To be able to come to some of those monthly meetings as a guest speaker is the other avenue that we still want to pursue.
To be clear with everybody, I think we need to say you're looking for money, of course. That helps. That pays for the scholarships. It pays for the banners and stuff. But also you're looking for any companies or anything that maybe a printing company that can make banners for you. Mm-hmm. Anything. And they could be in Southern California. So you have ambassadors. Are those kind of like the same things equal to like a chapter? Like a Surfrider has different chapters?
Yeah, in a way. I would say those Surfrider chapters are much more organized than my ambassador program is.
Yes.
You know?
Well, you're new. You're just getting going.
Well, I think too,
newish.
Yeah, I think too, it's just, you know, a lot of us, the individuals that surf, a lot of times we're not necessarily the most organized crew.
That's true.
So with that, it's almost like I'm not going to be too picky about who wants to be an ambassador. If they step up and if somebody wants to do I'm going to embrace them. I think for me too, Mike, I've always, even when I managed people and everything else, I always just kind of focused on their strengths. And if anything, you know, you focus on somebody's strengths and it gives them more confidence to work on their weaknesses. I think it is. I think everybody has some strengths that I think could work well when it comes to this ambassadors program for sure.
Awesome. You said you're pretty much on along California. You're in Hawaii. How about the East Coast?
I've had a couple buddies in Florida that I've wanted to, and one of the guys here that I surf with a lot, his family's from New York. So
there you go.
He usually lives back there during the summer. So he's been my ambassador for kind of that Rockaway North area. And then Florida is obviously another great spot to get somebody going. And I just haven't necessarily followed up on that one. I mean, the thing that's nice, and we'll talk about, I guess, what I've been doing a little bit later, but I'm pretty much retired now, which is a different place to be. So now I do have more time to work on this, which is really fun because, and once again, a generalization of most of us men, we're pretty focused on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And for me, it's always been work on top of family, like coaching. That's all enough right there.
Yeah.
You know, so
we keep busy.
Yeah, exactly. So now I don't have to coach my kids anymore because they're married or going to be married. And I don't necessarily have to travel all over the country for the different brands that I've worked for. I have more time to work on this, which I think is really fun.
It's an awesome organization, the Fallen Waterman's Foundation. You also sell merch sometimes. You get stuff made. And how does that get sold?
Yeah, so I didn't know if I should bring that up or not because I don't know if there's some other tax thing that I've got to be involved in. as a foundation. But so I gave away a lot of it. Let's put it that way. It is nice. We do have the merchandise. I did get it into one shop in San Francisco. He had a beautiful display for a long time.
Yeah, I saw it on Instagram.
Yeah, sold out to the piece, which was great. One of the sister-in-laws of the guy that died when I started this has been in the corporate premium business forever. Her company is Moxie Pro, and she literally has done all this merchandise for me, my pop-up tents. I mentioned the banners. She's done all this for me for free. And that's been going on for literally 10 years now, where we'll sell the merchandise at the different events we'll be at. And if somebody gives me a donation, I always love to be able to give them some swag to kind of go, just as a thank you along that front.
And it's good for marketing.
It is. That's what I was just going to say. It's like my whole crew at San Francisco, we all show up with our Fallen Waterman's Foundation shirts on, or sweatshirts on. And then obviously I have the big logos all over my truck too. And a little bit about that logo, which is, it's a great story, is that Dave Parmalee, who does custom cult designs out of Portland, was one of the senior designers of O'Neill in Santa Cruz back when they started the Cold Water Classic.
Wow, okay.
And he's the one that redid that. He redid that logo for me and made it look the way it looks now. Which
professionally done. Looks good.
Oh yeah, I mean the original logo was still nice, but it wasn't as quality as this one. He really added a lot to it. So, and he did again. He did that all pro bono. He didn't charge me anything for that. So that's why I'll throw out Custom Cult Design out of Portland as a little promotion for him, because the stuff he does is absolutely amazing.
Right. So what is the end goal here? Just to help as many people as you can? Like,
the end goal, and I mentioned it earlier, I would love to be able to say I've given away $100 million in scholarships. Point with that though too, Mike, is we've been helping these kids with their tuition, but every one of them has at least $100,000 in student debt. And my ultimate goal would be able to tackle their student debt as well. And at this point, I'd say with all the combined grant recipients that we've helped, I bet it's close to probably $1 million in student debt.
wow.
So that would be the ultimate, because you think about just the pressure that would take off those families, and it'd allow them to start their own families without a bunch of debt. And I think that's a huge piece of it right there. And then also the counseling side of it, just once again, we all have friends that have taken their lives one way or another. And especially in our world, just to be able to have people know that there's some organizations out there for them that can help them, free of charge. So I think it's a pretty important message to get out there for sure.
Yeah. Unfortunately, most of us will have a surf session pretty much, a couple days a week, 5 days a week, depends on how hardcore you are or how old you are too, I'm sure. And we don't expect anything to happen, but things do happen, and it's kind of cool that you're stepping up and the organization's stepping up to help families that something tragic happened to them.
Well, and thanks for saying that too, because it reminds me of my other tab on the website called Talk Story.
Yes.
So one of the original ideas I had was to get people's stories, just everyday surfers, could be lifeguards as well, but just everyday surfers of rescues, whether they've done the rescue or were part of a rescue, or the rescue was done on them, let's say, or whatever. But Talk Story, on the tab, you can go in and just type in your rescue story, and it gets published on the website. But the ultimate goal was to put all these stories in a book, sell the book, and have the revenues go back to the Fallen Waterman's Foundation.
That's cool.
And
that's something different and creative. I like it.
And there's some great stories on there too. And a lot of them have kind of a spiritual side to them too, which is kind of compelling if people are into that.
Yeah.
And there are some great stories on there already. And it is another vehicle.
And a lot of us want to tell the story of how we helped someone else out in the water, and they have given a vehicle to do so, especially if you're a writer. Mm-hmm. Take the opportunity here to write your story up.
Well, and I think to that point too, if you're not a writer, done with some of these is the guys have told me the story, and then I've gone back and written it, and then given it back to them to say, okay, what did I get wrong? What can I, how do I improve on this? I'd say probably 50% of the stories turn out to be stories that I've listened to that then I'll rewrite and then we'll get on there.
I'm sure in a lifetime of surfing, you've helped a few people. We all have at some point.
Well, the story that I would love to get on there too, and it was so tragic, is to think about Mark Fu
Yep.
and Sion Milosky.
Yep.
And Sion Milosky, Nathan Fletcher was, I don't know if you've ever heard his story, but he was in the water when they found Sion. Some of my friends at Vans were out one night and Nathan was telling the story. And that is a story I would love to get because I know it took him a while to work through it. I think he has, but that's a huge story. And Sion's pretty much the only famous person that the Fallen Waterman's Foundation has helped at this point. His two daughters were maybe 10 and 12 years old when it happened, maybe 8 and 10.
That's super cool.
And now one has graduated from the University of Hawaii and the other one is still at UC Santa Barbara as a senior. So we've been able to help them out for probably the last 5 or 6 years. As they kind of got to that college age, we started giving them scholarships. And then the other thing, though, now that we're doing is even if the kids are younger, 5, 6, it doesn't matter what age, we'll start giving them scholarships at that age. We'll give them grants that then can be put into like their own 529 account. Then when it comes time to start college or vocational school or whatever it might be, they'll have a little nest egg built up.
Yeah, at least get them going.
Yes.
Maybe more.
Exactly.
That's awesome. You guys are doing a lot of good things. And I'm sure it's not just you. You got your ambassadors and you have help out there. So that's cool that everyone helped you. But thank you, Mark, for helping out.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
fellow waterman, I guess.
I don't know if you're into the Bible, Mike, but there's something to be said in there about some verse about, for those that have been given much, much is expected. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I just obliterated it, but it's something to that effect.
Along those lines.
And that's where I just look at the life I've had, and I've had such a blessed life. And there's like, if there's some way to give back, I think this has been a great way to give back, even if it is not that big of a give back yet. It's helped a lot of people.
It's awesome. It's something that are changing people's lives. So that's really cool.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, since you said you had such a blessed life, so tell us about Mark. Yeah. Well, how did Mark start surfing?
Yeah. Let's see. I was born in Northern Cal. Then my dad, he worked in the Union Oil refinery. So he was transferred to the refinery that's down in Wilmington. Back then, Palos Verdes was affordable. So we ended up moving to Palos Verdes.
That's hard to believe, but okay.
Yeah, when I was 2 years old. Really started skateboarding first, but then my oldest brother he loved body surfing. We'd load up my mom and dad's station wagon. We'd take the entire neighborhood down in Newport Beach. I don't think we were at the wedge. We were down the beach from the wedge, but it just got us going, and we were all swimming on the local swim team in San Pedro. So we were always in the water. And we started off on the inflatable rafts, after we were body surfing, inflatable rafts that, remember, they'd tear your nipples off because you wouldn't wear your shirt and the really thick canvas and all that. So we started doing that at Rat Beach and Torrance Beach, Redondo Beach. And then that obviously just kind of progressed into surfing, and my buddy and I really got into surfing when we were about 11 years old. Surfed Paddleboard Cove or Palos Verdes Cove, whatever you want to call it, back before high school, during high school. My family's all originally from Montana, and I had always loved the outdoors along with the ocean. So that's kind of how I ended up in Northern California. I kind of felt like it was a good compromise between, I went to school in Oregon, and it's too rainy up there. But there is a lot of good surf up there, I'm finding out.
There's good surf, but it's cold and it's hard to find.
But during the summer, it's like I've got a nephew that lives up there, and I'll meet up with him at Otter Rock. And Otter Rock reminds me almost of like Bolinas up here, where it's just such a great vibe, a lot of beginners in the water. And middle of summer, it's warm enough. Everybody's still wearing wetsuits, but anyway, that's the sidebar. But anyway, so that's how I ended up in Northern California, because I felt like I still had this fantastic surf, mostly at Ocean Beach, and then some places in West Marin as well. But then I also had the mountain biking, the hiking, and you have Lake Tahoe 3.5, 4 hours away. I used to ski and snowboard a lot. It's just the best surf season here is during the winter. So if I can go surf for free versus paying $200 for a lift ticket, I've kind of gone that direction. So I don't really miss the snowboarding that much. Maybe after a few injuries as well. It doesn't hurt as much to fall on water as it does on ice. So.
Well, It's Ocean Beach. So,
Yeah, so anyway, so then from there too, just work-wise, I always kind of lean more towards independent things. And that's why I became an independent rep for different footwear companies, LA Gear back in the day.
wow, I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah, Fila, and then worked my way to Vans. And
Okay.
Vans was such a great stop for 15 years. It was an unbelievable place to be. I mean, I was really there even at the beginning when it was almost bankrupt. And then when VF came in and bought it and really started pouring a lot of marketing dollars into it, that's when Vans was still doing the Vans Triple Crown in Hawaii. But then that's when they took over the U.S. Open in Huntington Beach.
Yeah, I remember that.
Such a great vehicle. It went from being a brand that was basically sold at Mervyn's. We all remember Mervyn's if we're from Southern California.
Yes.
Some of the things they did to actually make it cool again, because at that point it was not.
Make it more core?
Yeah. And they did a lot of great things. And I mentioned some of the things already, but just those pillars of music and art and street culture and obviously the foundation of action sports. It kind of took Vans from being the cyclical skateboarding brand, like you see so much in skateboarding, to more of a youth culture brand. And that's when it absolutely just exploded.
And were you involved in that period?
Yeah, I sure was. It was a fun time to be there for sure. And then because it was owned by VF Corporation, VF also owned and still owns the North Face and Jansport backpacks. And they were based out of kind of like the Fremont area up here or San Leandro area. So the headquarters was 30 miles away from my house. So I thought, God, it would, kind of as I got into management with Vans, I thought, well, instead of having to live at the Shorebreak Hotel 4 nights a week to be at Vans headquarters on Monday mornings at 8:30, maybe I could work my way into a North Face or Jansport. And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up at Jansport until they told me they were moving to the headquarters to Denver. Ooh. And as soon as I found that out, I was like, well, there's no surf in Denver as far as
I was just going to say.
So then I moved to Tom's. I moved to Tom's Footwear.
Okay.
And Tom's was a super fun place to work. Once again, a little bit more give back oriented. I mean, they were the first ones to do the 1-for-1 type thing. And then from Tom's, I've pretty much retired from Tom's and I'm just doing some consulting stuff on the side. But really, once again, more time to spend on Fallen Waterman's Foundation and more time to surf, more time to spend with my new grandkids that fortunately live in Santa Cruz. So
there you go.
Especially as I age, it's kind of nice to transition from Ocean Beach to Santa Cruz. I think many of us do it as we get older.
Pleasure Point's super fun.
It is. I mean, I say it all the time about Ocean Beach is undefeated. There's nobody.
Yeah, that is 100% true.
And it's amazing. I'll paddle out down there in Santa Cruz and I'll see guys in the water that I used to see at Ocean Beach that I haven't seen for a while. It's an amazing spot. Pleasure Point especially. It's just it is so
that whole region up there.
Fun. Yeah.
For me, being in Southern California, it's chilly up there, especially in this time of year. In January, February, it's a little cold, but wetsuit technology today makes it available to everybody.
So great. Yeah, it's so great. And it's funny with Ocean Beach, though, too, Mike. I know, obviously, you guys talk so much about surfing, but just to go over to the North Shore, I'm sitting at some B peak. I want to say marijuanas or leftovers or right overs of B peak, but you know what I'm talking about. And I'm sharing it with one other guy, some local, for a big day on a big day. Eventually, I just thanked him. I said, hey, thanks for letting me share your waves with you. I go, I'll tell you what, I'm from San Francisco. I'm from Ocean Beach, and this is paradise. It's like this. Yeah. The white water even feels softer as it hits you, And what's funny is as soon as I say I'm from Ocean Beach or I mention Ocean Beach, it's like instant respect. And I can't do pidgin English or whatever, but they would just be like, oh, I moved over there for 6 months. I came back. It was too cold.
You're right.
Or whatever. And I've heard it more than once. It was so funny just to find out. I didn't know I was claiming it at the time, but I guess I was.
So when you moved from Southern California to, San Pedro, San Palos Verdes area, going to Ocean Beach, how was your first few sessions out there?
Oh, my God. I see everybody go through this transition.
Yeah.
And everybody that shows up here shows up on boards that are too short. They'll tell me, especially the younger kids, in their 20s or whatever, I'm going to get a step up. I'm going to get a step up. I go, well, how long is your step up going to be?
Yeah.
He goes like 6'8". I just laugh, you know? And then I give him a few more years, and next thing I find out they're looking for an 8.0 gun or an 8.6
Yeah.
gun. And it's just eventually they keep moving up. And I remember there was one guy that worked at Bob Wise's shop for years and years, Dave Alexander, who was like, he was the mayor of that shop. He was one of the only nice guys in there. All the other guys are kind of grumpy. But I remember seeing Dave out. I was out on a 7.8 gun, and it was a pretty good sized day. And I'm paddling for absolutely everything. And finally, and then I get caught inside and then do the extra 20, 25-minute paddle back out. And I get back outside. And finally, he just said to me, he goes, Mark, you cannot paddle for every wave. You know, and I think that was probably one of my biggest learning lessons at that point. Just to be more patient and to be more strategic. It's like, you know, I'm sure you've read Jerry Lopez's book. Surf is
A long time ago.
Yeah, the one about surf is where your heart is or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But the thing he talked about in there, which I loved, because he was always my idol as a kid.
Okay.
I'm growing up in that era when he was the king.
Are you a goofy foot?
Regular. I'm regular foot. But he just talked about how he always tries to take like the third wave of the set. I read the book probably 10 years ago, and I'm still trying to incorporate that into my my MO. But I typically, it's like on my tombstone, it's going to say first wave Mark. And I think, especially with Ocean Beach, so often it's like, if the chance that you're going to be in the right spot at the right time is so tough that if you're in the right spot, how can you let that wave go by?
You have to go, right?
You know, you have to go. So the thing they joke about us, though, whenever I'm down in Santa Cruz and they find out I'm from Ocean Beach, or if I'm at Scotts Creek or Waddell or one of those mid-coast places, is that they'll always joke that all of us from Ocean Beach are good paddlers, but none of us can do a cutback. And
Is that true?
That's totally true, because you're always trying to get down the line.
Yes.
You're trying to get down the line before it closes out on the inside sandbar. You got to kick out. And the level of surfing at Ocean Beach has changed so much, I'd say, over just the last decade, where, you know, the Nat Youngs of the world, the Gadascas brothers, I mean, everybody's showing up now, and they're riding 7.0s, 7.6s, 7.8s on these double and triple overhead days where most of us, like a part of the old guard, we're out on our, like I said, our 8.6 guns or even our 9.6 guns, just because it's so nice to be able to catch that outer sandbar and not even mess with the inside sandbar. Because I'm sure you've seen some of the video over the last 4 weeks. I mean, it's just been incredible.
And last year had showed some great waves last year.
Yeah.
Clean peaks. Huge peaks, though.
I know. I don't want to start like promoting the place, because I probably.
But I think most people are already not going to go out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's only if they try to get out, they're not going to make it out the back. Everyone I've talked to has seriously said it's the heaviest wave, for sure.
The Gadascas brothers would recognize me from coming to different Vans events, especially Dane. But we were talking one day out in the water up here, and they had their videographers in the water and stuff like this, and we got talking about, you know, they're coming up to Ocean Beach, and Dane said, he goes, yeah, you know, we always bring our guns up here to test them out for sunset, because if we know if a board works here, it's going to work at sunset. And I asked him, I go, what do you consider a gun? And he was like, well, like a 7-Eleven. And once again, I thought, oh my God, it's such a different level, you know?
Well, it's a different level and a different generation.
It is. But to see how deep they can take off and how many barrels they can grab, it's stunning. And I think really just over this last month or two, the sandbars, because they haven't gotten blown out from a lot of big swells that have rolled through, they've just gotten bigger and cleaner to the point where, like, we've got a huge swell coming in right now. There's a good chance, it's February now, so we might have a month left, maybe 2 months, and then the northwest winds will kick up and it'll be, you know, much more inconsistent than it has been.
Okay.
But it'll be interesting to see if this one blows out these sandbars or not. But boy, they've been clean. It's been incredible.
Is there a wave around the area? You don't have to give a name or anything. That's a little more playful, not so serious.
Oh yeah, no, there's tons.
Okay.
There's tons.
There is tons.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, they're not secrets. You know, Scotts Creek, Waddell.
That's a drive though.
Yeah, it's like halfway down there. I would say West Marin has some different waves too that are pretty well protected.
Okay.
that,
Yeah, you need a little bit of protection.
yeah, exactly.
Maybe-
So, I mean, I'll mention Muir Beach. A lot of guys will kick me in the butt for talking about Muir Beach because it is so fickle, guaranteed. If people show up there once, they might hit it. But if they try to come back again, the chances are pretty good they're not going to hit it.
Okay.
So there's definitely some protected spots. I mentioned Bolinas, which is such kind of that, they tear down the sign for the town so nobody will know where Bolinas is.
Really?
That's been going
Okay.
on since the 60s. It does remind me of like Otter Rock in Oregon, where it's a reef break. They just have these perfect little reefs that, that's where I taught my kids how to surf so they could paddle
Okay.
back out in green water instead of getting hammered by more white water. I think the good news is they're both still surfing, and they're 30 and 33 years old.
Yeah.
They both live in Santa Cruz. So I must have done something right. I would say, if you were ever asked me, what advice would you give like a young parent? My one piece of advice, especially to the dads that have sons, is don't get them started too early. Because I've had so many friends that, you're all stoked to push your kids into waves when they're 2 and 3 years old. And it's really fun. But then when they fall off and they get caught under the white water, and then they're crying and they get scared and all that kind of stuff. And then when you really want them surfing in their teens, they're off doing other stuff because they don't want to surf anymore. What I did with my son is I got him into skateboarding first. So he could pretty much drop into any bowl at any skate park anywhere when he was, 10 years old or whatever.
Wow.
But I also had both kids swimming on the local swim team, like the summer swim team. So it wasn't like super, travel club swimming, but it was just like the quick swim meets. But just to get them comfortable in the water to the point where when they do get held under, they're not freaking out and they don't want to surf with you when they get into their teens,
Yeah. Were you taking your kids out to Ocean Beach as teenagers?
My son, not my daughter. My daughter's version of a great surf session, she loves to get blonde hair and suntan. That's kind of her idea. She'll lay out.
That's mine too.
Yeah, she'll lay out in the kelp patty, Mike. She'll lay out in the kelp patty in between sets and just lay on her board and just soak it all
like
up.
it.
I love it. Whereas my son, he ended up really transitioning from skateboarding to surfing probably when he was 12 or 13. I'd say it was behind the 8 ball compared to the kids that are on the surf teams, in Southern California and high school teams and all
starting
that kind of stuff.
at 6 months old.
Yeah. So, but then he started going to Ocean Beach with me probably when he was maybe 14 years old, and I would pick and choose the days, to make the right days. And then he ended up going to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and tried out for their surf team the first 2 years, didn't make it, and then made it his junior year.
Nice.
And surfed on it for his junior and senior year. Just having that opportunity to surf with surfers that were so much better than he was, it was amazing just to see how quickly his skill level just went up exponentially.
And it's fun. Morro Rock is good.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of spots
Yeah,
down there.
Pismo's
too.
not bad either.
Oh my God. There's a lot of spots around that area too that
there
the
is.
locals don't want to talk about, but we had some really fun sessions in that area.
Yeah.
I think if anything, maybe it was a blessing because I think Holt was kind of going on that direction to wanting to surf Mavericks at some point, etc. And he and I did have a session. It was the biggest session. He had been out at Ocean Beach. He took out my 8.6. I had a Roger Hines gun. That was 8.6. It was like 19 and a half inches wide. It was like a pencil, but it was super fun board. He and I were having a great session. And back then, it's like you were looking for people in the water to go out with you on some of those bigger days. And I saw him catch a wave, and I saw the board kind of tombstoning on the inside. Woo. And then he didn't come back out. So I figured, okay, I'll catch one more and go in. And I probably took another 10 minutes. As I'm getting into the beach, a guy's running down the beach to me saying, "Hey, that's your son, right? That was your son you're riding on?" Yeah. He goes, "Well, he's in the parking lot and he's bleeding from his ear."
No.
And it ended up that when he fell, he took a fin to the back of his ear.
Oh.
But somehow some of the shards of fiberglass got in and penetrated his eardrum.
Oh, shoot.
So it took him literally a month. He's back down at school and his ear is still not right. And this is after we'd spent hours at the emergency room that day.
Yeah.
And the doctor pulled out these 2 shards of fiberglass out of his eardrum, which tore his eardrum again.
Oh, jeez.
So I think the good news is he never talked about Mavericks again after that. which doesn't break my heart, you know. Like
No.
he'll go out on big days, but he's very selective. He'll sit on the outside, the far outside, and just pick off the bomb that all of us should have been waiting for, that none of us wait for. So,
There you go.
I think it might have been a blessing that it happened, you know, a minor injury like that happened. Who knows?
It sounds kind of major, but what are your thoughts on Ocean Beach versus Mavericks? Is there a verse, or are they two different kind of swells?
Whew, I'll tell you what, I found out about Mavericks in 1992. So my daughter was 2 years old. And at that point, Mike, I literally thought to myself, you know what? I would look like an idiot if I went out there and if something happened, it's like a father, you know, a 32-year-old father with a 2-year-old dies at Mavericks kind of thing, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
And I intentionally have never even gone to look at it.
Really?
Never. And a lot of the guys,
you're 15 miles away.
I swear, I know, but a lot of the guys I surf Ocean Beach with obviously surf Mavericks as well.
Yeah.
And there's kind of two sides of the story. And I'll catch heat for saying this, but anybody can paddle out at Maverick. Right?
Yes.
Anybody can paddle out at
if they
Maverick.
go around, right.
Exactly. Not anybody can paddle out at Ocean Beach.
So I hear.
On a big day, you know? Yeah. So I think there is something to be said for maybe we're just a dumber crew at Ocean Beach. Like, why would we continue to surf Ocean Beach on these big days when we could go to a reef break someplace else and actually have more fun and not have a 30 or 40 minute paddle out? For a lot of the kids that grew up in San Francisco, like a lot of people know or have heard of Matty Lopez, he ends up in every video that ever comes out with Ocean Beach will always have Matty in it. And he'll talk about, as a kid, you know, his goal was to surf Mavericks. And I think a lot of the rippers at Ocean Beach now are the kids that have aspired to surf Mavericks and will end up surfing it. You know, there's one kid that played high school water polo. His dad is a teacher at the local high school. And he started surfing Ocean Beach with us when he was, 13, 14 years old. And we always made a point of keeping our eye out for him, right?
Yeah.
Where now he keeps his eye out for us. Kind of thing. Yeah. So I think
the generations change.
Yeah. And I think too, the Mavericks piece is just, I give huge props to the guys that surf it. There's no doubt they deserve those props.
Yeah, 100%.
And at the same time, I think there's, at least for myself, I don't have anything to prove, and especially now that I'm past 60, it's like I have nothing to prove. I kind of find myself sometimes, if I'm out on a bigger day and I see some really old guy in the water, which you're not seeing that many guys that are older than I am anymore, but at some point you kind of wonder, it's like, when do you get off the court? When do you finally say, you know what, it's time to go to Pleasure Point or it's time to go to Bolinas? And I think the answer to that question will come when something happens where you realize, you know what, I'm getting in over my head. And maybe that's the time. Fortunately for me, as I said earlier, I think it's like I played water polo. I swam my whole life. It's like, so water-wise, I've always been super comfortable in the water. The one thing that I think has extended my days at Ocean Beach, and guys are going to say I'm a kook for doing this too, but it actually has worked. One of my buddies years ago was having issues with his hip and his knee, and he was starting to get like a foot drop thing where his back was getting all messed up. We had FCS make some waist leashes for us, and we started using waist leashes. Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah,
I've
so
never heard of a waist.
We started using these waist leashes, and this was probably 15 or 20 years ago, because I noticed that on those bigger days, it's like you're not duck diving an 8.6 gun. You're not duck diving a 9.6 gun.
Okay.
Right? You're going to have to pitch it because it's going to get ripped out of your hands anyway.
Okay.
So then you're getting pulled on, and all that strain is going on your hip and your knee, right? Mm-hmm. So eventually it's like my hip and my knee were starting to bother me. So I figured I'll try one of these waist leashes. And what I found, Mike, is that like you've pitched your big board and you're getting pulled like this, and you're kind of in a V shape or like a C shape with your waist in the middle, right? So you're getting pulled by your surfboard, but what happens is it pulls you to the surface like a ski boat, like you're getting out of the water when you're wakeboarding or skiing. And the other thing that's kind of nice is that leg that is normally attached to your leash, you now have both legs to use to get back up to the surface.
Makes sense.
Which a lot of times you open your eyes, it's black. You know, it's like there's no sun filtering through. So to be able to have both those legs to get back up to the surface is pretty nice too.
Does the leash not get tangled?
It does occasionally.
It just seems like I'm trying to put this through my head. I've never heard of a waist leash. I don't know. I haven't.
I mean, it'll occasionally get tangled, but especially like usually.
And how long is it?
You can use whatever leash you want. Like we attach them. Like the initial ones we had made, they actually stitched the ankle strap into the hip strap basically.
All right. Okay. I'm with you. I'm with you.
But now what I went back to, and this is what I started with in the first place, I just went to REI Co-op and bought a climbing harness and cut the leg loops off of it. And I use the climbing harness, but the buckle I'll turn around and put in the back. And then I can just attach my ankle strap to that climbing harness. And that's what I use now all the time is just a climbing harness. I probably spent $60 on it because our old Velcro ones that we had that had the full loop Velcro piece that came across, they're too old now. With the waist leash too, I mean, it's amazing how many guys ask me about it when I'm in the water because they see me. And I mean, it's so I look like a total kook because now I'm wearing a helmet because I've gotten concussion issues as well.
Okay.
So now I'm wearing a helmet and a waist leash, and it's just like this guy's a complete tool, you know. So then I'm kind of.
But you're out there.
Well, then I'm more motivated to try to catch decent waves and stuff. And it's funny you say, but you're out there. I've just started to get that line. Just recently, I'm limping up the beach because I've got some torn cartilage in my foot. And this whole pack of young kids come walking up to me. And, you know, there's always current at Ocean Beach pulling you one way or the other. So they asked me about the current, and I kind of told them where this one rip is that it'll help them get out a little easier.
Pop them out the back. Yeah.
And one of them says to me, "Hey, man, good for you that you're still getting out there."
Yeah, what do you do with that?
Oh, my God, exactly. It's like, yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for that.
Is it ever flat in Ocean Beach? It never gets flat. It's always a rideable wave.
No, it can get pretty small. It's like sometimes,
really?
Yeah, it's like I've taken my nieces out there on like 2 to 3 foot days, and
really
there's some pretty small days for sure. But really, anybody that ever asks me, you know, if they want to learn how to surf, I usually just steer them away from beach breaks in general.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, you've so many of these kids, you just get hammered by the white water. There's nothing fun about getting caught inside and never making it outside.
Yeah.
And especially with Ocean Beach, it's somewhat shallow for a little bit, but it's not a beach where you're going to be able to stand and then jump onto your board, and you're going to be riding white water is the bottom line. So I usually try to steer them towards some reef breaks. Cowles, you know, over on the west side is such a great beginner spot down in Santa Cruz.
When it's breaking.
When it's breaking.
Yeah.
You know, Cowles, and I mentioned Bolinas, which now I probably won't even be able to paddle out there again if people are listening to your website, but that's okay. It's such a good crowd. One of the stories I will tell about Bolinas, which I think you'll love, Mike. I took my son out there. He was on a soft top. We went out to the patch, which is to the kind of the right side of the different breaks. Okay. And it was literally just my son and me, and these two guys are out there. They have tattoos all over their faces, their necks. Their arms are like bigger than my legs. They're absolutely huge, huge men. And I had caught a wave, and then my son is paddling for a wave, and I can hear them yelling at him. And I'm just like, oh my God, they're yelling at my son. He must have gotten in their way or something, you know?
Yeah.
So as I'm paddling closer, the one big guy has his hands on his mouth like this, and he's yelling at my son. He's saying, "Paddle, little man, paddle with all your heart."
They're stoked for him.
It was so classic.
Yeah, that's great.
It was so classic. And then we got talking and stuff, and these two guys, I don't know, maybe they just gotten out of prison or something, but either way,
they were nice guys.
You never would have met nicer guys. And that's pretty much the whole scene out at Bolinas, especially what's called the patch, which is off to the right. That's where the beginners go. And the more experienced surfers will surf what's called the groin, and that's where the lagoon empties out. And there's more of a performance wave over there, and you get the sandbars out there and stuff like that. But
cool,
it is a pretty amazing spot.
Yeah, I've never even heard of it, but I'm gonna go check that out one day.
Hey, I've got plenty of, I know what kind of board you ride, Mike, but I've got pretty much everything you can imagine in my garage. You show up, we'll find you some board you can ride out there for sure.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So what is in your quiver, Mark?
Oh, let's see. I'd say my shortest board I got was a 6'1" average Joe. A lot of Channel Island boards, because Channel Islands, my buddy Mike Witherspoon, this is one of the guys that I'd mentioned that we've given his daughter scholarships for the last 10 years. He had been the Channel Islands rep in Northern Cal and XL wetsuit rep, and then he went to work for Vans in Southern Cal and ended up being diagnosed with brain cancer. He fought it for probably 5 years. Sidebar on that, but he always gave me the family discount at Channel Islands through, I can't remember the
Can't pass that out, yeah.
Exactly. So back to the quiver though, it starts with that average Joe. I have a M13, a 6.6 M13, which I absolutely love. I'm riding most of these as quads now, and not as much thrusters, riding quads. And then from the M13, I had a 7.0 MX. I sold that. I still have my 7.8 Taylor Knox, Channel Islands Taylor Knox.
Okay.
With glassed-in fins. So my son has that in Santa Cruz now. And then from that 7.8, I ended up getting a Carl Shopper 8-foot gun. So Carl Shopper out of the North Shore. He was originally, he went to work for George Downing as a shaper.
Okay.
And
so it was like a ghost shaper for
boards. Yeah, he had some of his boards at Bob Wise's old shop at 800 Highway, Great Highway in San Francisco. There's a few left in there, but he showed up, and with the Fallen Waterman's Foundation, we did kind of a shaping roundtable there one night.
Oh, cool.
Had some of the local big guys come from Ocean Beach just to talk shop with Carl Shopper. So 8.0 gun, and then an 8.6 MBG from Channel Islands gun.
Okay.
And then a 9.8 MBG from Channel Islands.
Wow, big boards. And
then I've got 3 different longboards that I've had in my quiver forever. One's probably 30 years old. It's a 9.0 from some guy from Southern California, higher powered. Never heard of him. He didn't even know how to spell it. I think he'd been in AA and they talked about higher powered. And it's glassed into the board and it's spelled wrong. He spelled powered wrong. But that's classic. So that's a classic. And then I've got a 9.2 Robert August that is absolutely beautiful. That my good buddy gave me. And then I've got a 10.2 Joe Bark, which my buddy also got for me. That's one of those boards, Mike, where I don't know if you're like this, but we were going to leave it here. So I told my wife it was my buddy's board, that he was just leaving it here. Yeah. And he told his wife that it was my board. So anyway, I'm not really sure who owns that one.
Who owns the board, but you know where to find it.
Yeah.
That's the important thing.
Yeah, since I've had it for the last 35 years, I'd say it's probably my board.
There you go.
And that's pretty much the quiver right there. I've tried to cull it back a little bit, just because, depending on how big it might be. That 7.0 range, I'm not necessarily riding 7.0s anymore, because my 6.6 has enough volume that it kind of covers where I was before on that 7.0.
Yeah.
So like my 6.6 is 42 liters. So that's a lot of liters for somebody that weighs 168 pounds. Yeah. So anyway, so I like that aspect of it. And that kind of lets me jump up to, I don't know, I'm kind of riding that maybe up to maybe 6 foot at Ocean Beach. And then if it gets to be 6 to 8 feet, I usually switch to that 8.0 gun now.
Do you have a board that you want to get shaped, or are you like eyeball, or you think you're good for your golden?
God. I can't believe the one board that I'm riding more than anything right now. I bought a Mare, M-A-I-R.
Okay.
A Mare?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's 7.11 and 7/8 inches long. And I know that because the guy that I bought it from literally he's 71 years old, and he wanted to claim he could still surf a 7-foot board.
Yes. So he went right to that.
He did. He went right to that edge.
Yeah.
And
that's funny.
And that board has been so fun, even though it's got a rounded nose on it because he wanted to cut off the tip so it wouldn't be 8 foot. It has the stretch rails on it, kind of the pulled in rails.
Yes.
And he had these fins, Mike, from, I think it's Hanley. But anyway, that board has been super fun as a fun board. It's really good in anything. And it's probably 22.5 inches wide, so it's pretty wide, right?
Yeah.
But I've taken it out on some bigger days too, and it's one of the most, and it's set up as a quad. I think it's the Hanley Fin Company. Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
Yeah, so they're these kind of goofy looking fins, the ones that are kind of like the back edge is kind of carved out.
Okay.
So they just have a different shape to them. And it's the most maneuverable board I've ever surfed at that length. I mean, you
Wow.
can turn the thing. It's just amazing. So
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that. And that board in particular, all my buddies, we all call it the penis board now. Because the nose on it literally is like, you can imagine what I'm saying here. So,
It's in my head.
yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
How many decades have you surfed?
Well, starting with 70. So 70,
Okay.
80, 90, 2000, 2010, now we're 2020.
Okay.
That's
Six?
six.
Five?
That's
Six.
six. I'd say more like 5 because we're kind of halfway through the 6th one, I guess. So maybe
Okay.
5.5 decades.
Okay.
Yeah.
How has your surfing changed? Are you looking for different kind of waves? What has been the biggest change over the years?
Yeah. I think all of us would probably say the same thing. Is just the biggest change is just being able to pop up quickly. As our hips get tighter, as our backs get tighter. But the one thing I've kind of looked at, Mike, and I would say, I don't know if you'd agree with this. I don't know if your people would agree with this that listen to the podcast, but I don't remember there being such a focus on getting barreled when we were kids. And maybe it was because I was after the longboard generation, surfing shortboards when we started, but it was more about cruising down the line, and kind of going up and down and making those turns kind of off the top. But it wasn't necessarily about getting barreled. And then I'd say things turned into being much more vertical, where you're trying to get more vertical. All that, I kind of progressed through that period. But the part I never really figured out was getting barreled, right? And the same thing with
Which is funny coming from Ocean Beach. But
I know, but that's the thing is, to me, like they might say this is sacrilegious, but I don't think that was really our focus back in the 80s and 90s at Ocean Beach. It wasn't necessarily to get barreled. It was more to get down the line and kick out before you get caught on that inside sandbar.
Okay.
And it's almost like this new generation. It's like, you even think about Bill Burgess and Pee Wee, everybody's heard of Pee Wee, I think in one way or another. He's like one of the legends of Ocean Beach.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen him surf since the early 80s. And with Pee Wee, he has that flow very much like a Jerry Lopez has. It was more back then about just the flow going down the line. To answer your question, the one thing I look at now, that the only thing I can improve on when it comes to surfing, because everything else is going south, the only thing I can improve on is figuring out how to get barreled. And with that, it's that angle. When you take off, you've got to have that, like that, at least with Ocean Beach, kind of that 45-degree angle, because if you're pointing too high, what I've mastered is pointing too high and then getting sucked up over the lip and pitched. Right? I mean, it's happened to all of us. I would say that's the part that's changed for me is like, as I've started to ride longer boards, it's not about going vertical. It's not about getting the huge fans. It's more about now trying to figure out how to get set up, trying to take off a little deeper, and figuring out how to get set up so I could potentially get barreled.
There you go.
That's what I can still improve on when it comes to riding like performance boards.
Yeah.
And then for longboards, I don't ride them that often, but if I take out a longboard, you feel like you have to be able to do a crossover versus the crab step kind of going up that looks so bad.
Yeah.
So I think in the next
So
decade,
style.
Yes. Yeah. So especially longboarding, I'm like over the next decade, I'm going to figure out how to do a crossover. That's kind of
okay.
the goal.
All right.
So.
Well, at least you have goals. And once again, Santa Cruz is the perfect spot for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Longboards can make a little drive down the beach.
Yes, exactly.
And then give us one good story or one funny story of the time working with vans.
Oh man. You know what? I don't know if it's it's not necessarily a funny story, but it is one story, Mike, that I love to share about vans. And it comes back to Mike Witherspoon, the guy that was diagnosed with the brain cancer there.
Yeah.
And as an independent rep, he was not an employee, as an independent rep, 100% commission, right? Vans made the commitment to Mike that when he got brain cancer, if he got weaker and wasn't able to handle the number of accounts that he had in the LA area, they would take some of his accounts away, but they would increase his commission rate so he would be assured to make the same amount of money
Oh, that's cool.
that he was making. before he'd been diagnosed with the brain cancer. And they
That's
held
cool.
to that. And the other thing they did once he passed is they set up some scholarships for his kids as well.
Oh, okay.
And to just think about that, it's like the one thing I was always so proud of Vans is that we'd be at the US Open. It was all hands on deck. We were all there, whether it didn't matter what we did, we were there as ambassadors, just to help people around. And our shirts that we wore, instead of saying staff on the back, it said family. And
Yes.
I get kind of, like goosebumps thinking about it. It's kind of corny. But at the same time, it's like they didn't just talk about it, they did it. And I think my story with Mike is a perfect example of that, and a lot of that I think attributes back to the management team at that point. They understood that's what you do with your family. You make sure they're set. So
Wow, that's cool.
yeah, I think that is a great story. And it does kind of tie back to the Fallen Waterman's Foundation too,
Fallen Waterman's Foundation. I'll put the link in the website on the show notes so everyone can see it. Yeah, everyone, if you guys, whatever, being an ambassador, just contact Mark. I'm sure he can find a job for you. And if you have money, if you're rich, make sure you're kicking down to this awesome foundation that's like helping us out. And you never know, none of us want or wish something bad to happen, but it's cool that your organization's helping people out that we know, we talk to in the parking lot.
Exactly.
We see you. We see in the lineup.
And I appreciate you having me on too, Mike. This has been huge. And I would say too, just to your point, call to action. It's like even for your Australian friends in New Zealand and at Sydney or wherever they might be, it's like that's the next step, because obviously there's some tragic things that happen over there too. So it's time to take the Fallen Waterman's Foundation to Australia.
The world's getting smaller, and surfing's getting bigger than ever. People are surfing all over weird spots in the world that we didn't know surfed. There's surfers everywhere.
That's for sure.
And watermen. So this isn't just for surfers, but it's for watermen. But yeah.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. Divers, stand-up paddlers, foilers, kiters. Yeah, absolutely.
This is a great organization. Tell your friend about the Fallen Waterman's Foundation. Let everyone know. This should become a household name foundation, in my opinion.
Love it.
Yeah. So everybody, this is Mike and Mark from the Fallen Waterman's Foundation, and we are out of here. Thanks for joining us. Bye, everyone.
I go right. Man, this wave is out of sight. Going surfing. Going surfing. Going surfing with friends. Ride this wave to the shore. Paddle out, I'm gonna catch 10 more. Going surfing. Going surfing. Going surfing with friends. I don't care if it's wrong or right. I'm gonna do it all day, I'm gonna do it all night. I'm going surfing. Going surfing. Going surfing with friends. Watching up on my way. It's a beautiful day. I'm going surfing. I'm going surfing. Going